Sarah's fingers trembled as she navigated through the labyrinth of the deep web. Her brother had been missing for 3 months, and the police had given up. This was her last resort. She'd heard whispers of an exclusive auction site where anything or anyone could be bought for the right price. The thought made her stomach churn, but desperation drove her forward. After weeks of searching, she found it, the Black Market Bazaar. The site's interface was sleek, belying its sinister purpose. Sarah created an account, her heart pounding as she entered the verification code sent to her encrypted email. The homepage loaded, revealing categories that made her blood run cold: organs, weapons, hitmen, and worst of all, live merchandise. With a shaky breath, she clicked the last option. Rows of thumbnails appeared, each showing a person's face, age, and starting bid. Sarah scrolled, her eyes darting from face to face, praying she wouldn't recognize anyone. Then she saw him. Thomas, her little brother, looking terrified and disheveled. The starting bid, $50,000. Sarah bit back a scream. She had to win this auction, but how? She didn't have that kind of money. As she stared at the screen, a chat window popped up. "Interested in lot number 47? The message read. Sarah hesitated, then replied, "Yes. We don't often see new buyers. What brings you to our humble marketplace?" She swallowed hard. "I'm looking for something specific. Aren't we all? But be warned, once you enter this world, there's no going back." The next message contained a link. "Click here for a special first-time buyer's offer." Sarah's cursor hovered over the link. Every instinct screamed at her to close the browser and run, but Thomas's face haunted her. She clicked. The screen went black, then filled with a video feed. A hooded figure stood in a dim room. Thomas bound and gagged behind them. "Welcome to the real auction," the figure said, voice distorted. "You want this boy? Prove it." "How?" Sarah typed, her hands shaking. "Simple. We'll release him, but you must take his place." Sarah's breath caught in her throat. "You're insane." "Perhaps, but isn't family worth any sacrifice?" "Tick-tock, Sarah. Thomas doesn't have much time left." How did they know her name? Sarah's mind raced. Was this a trap, or her only chance to save Thomas? "If I agree, you'll let him go, unharmed?" "You have my word, but remember, there's no going back." Sarah closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. She thought of her parents, devastated by Thomas's disappearance. She thought of Thomas's future, bright and full of potential. "I'll do it," she typed. "Excellent. Check your email for instructions. And Sarah, welcome to the other side of the screen." The video cut out. Moments later, her encrypted email pinged. Inside was a message with coordinates and a date, just 3 days away. Sarah sat back, numb with shock and fear. What had she just agreed to? Could she go through with it? As doubt crept in, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of Thomas, sleeping peacefully in what looked like a hospital bed. "He'll be home soon," the message read. "Your move." Sarah stood, her resolve hardening. She had 3 days to put her affairs in order and say goodbye to her old life. Whatever horrors awaited her in the dark corners of the world, she would face them. For Thomas. As she began to pack a small bag, her computer chimed. A new email with only 4 words: "The auction never ends." Jake had always been fascinated by urban legends, especially those surrounding the deep web. He'd spent countless nights exploring its hidden recesses, convinced that somewhere in its depths he'd find proof of the infamous Red Rooms, live streams of unspeakable acts. Most dismissed Red Rooms as myths, but Jake knew better. He'd seen things, hints and whispers that pointed to their existence. And tonight, he was sure he'd finally found one. The link came from a user he'd been corresponding with for months, someone who claimed to have inside access to the darkest corners of the web. Jake's hands shook as he clicked it, anticipation and fear coursing through him in equal measure. The page loaded slowly, revealing a simple black background with a red door in the center. A countdown timer ticked away in the corner, 30 minutes until the stream began. Jake settled in, his eyes glued to the screen. As the timer approached 0, the chat box exploded with activity. Users from around the world, hidden behind anonymous handles, eagerly awaited the show. The red door creaked open. Inside was a stark white room, empty save for a single chair in the center. A figure in a black mask and robes entered. dragging a bound and hooded captive. Jake's breath caught in his throat. This was it, the proof he'd been searching for. The masked figure turned to the camera, tilting their head in an unsettling manner. "Welcome, viewers," a distorted voice crackled through Jake's speakers. "Tonight's entertainment is brought to you by popular demand. You voted, and we listened." The chat erupted again, users clamoring with excitement and making grotesque suggestions. Now, the voice chided. "Patience, we have a very special guest with us tonight, someone who's been a bit too curious for their own good." Jake's blood ran cold. Surely they couldn't mean. The masked figure reached for the captive's hood, slowly pulling it off to reveal a face Jake knew all too well. His own. He recoiled from the screen, his mind reeling. How was this possible? He was here, safe in his room, wasn't he? On the screen, the other Jake thrashed against his bonds, eyes wide with terror. "You see," the masked figure continued, "our curious friend here thought he was clever, thought he could outsmart us, find our little playground without consequences. But in the Red Room, the watchers always become the watched." Jake's eyes darted around his room, suddenly aware of how dark the corners seemed, how many shadows could hide prying eyes. "Did you really think your VPN could protect you? That your encrypted chats were truly private?" The figure laughed, a chilling sound even through the voice distortion. "Every click, every search, every message, we saw it all. And now, dear viewers, we invite you to join us in teaching Jake a lesson about the dangers of curiosity." The chat exploded once more, a frenzy of sadistic suggestions scrolling faster than Jake could read. "Let's start with something simple," the masked figure said, producing a wicked-looking knife. "Shall we find out if Jake is ticklish?" Jake slammed his laptop shut, his heart pounding. This couldn't be real. It had to be some kind of sick prank, a highly elaborate hoax. He fumbled for his phone, intending to call the police, only to find it dead. When he tried to turn on the lights, nothing happened. A notification pinged from his laptop. Against his better judgment, Jake opened it. A new message waited in his encrypted chat. "The show's not over, Jake. We're coming for the encore." Suddenly, his webcam light blinked on, its tiny green eye staring at him accusingly. Jake ran to the door, only to find it locked from the outside. As he pulled frantically at the handle, he heard footsteps in the hallway, drawing closer. The last thing Jake saw before his world went dark was a black-robed figure in the doorway, holding up a phone, live-streaming his terror to an unseen audience. In rooms across the world, countless screens glowed red, their users leaning in with morbid fascination as a new chapter of Jake's nightmare began. The Red Room claimed another victim. The line between watcher and watched blurred forever in the dark depths of the web. Emma prided herself on being a skilled programmer, capable of navigating the most complex systems. But nothing had prepared her for what she found buried in the code of an obscure deep web forum. It started as a routine job. A client hired her to probe for vulnerabilities in their site, a seemingly innocuous message board for rare book collectors. Emma had expected to find the usual security flaws, maybe some poorly encrypted user data. Instead, she uncovered a hidden layer of the forum, accessible only through a specific sequence of commands. Intrigued, Emma dove deeper. The hidden section was unlike anything she'd seen before. The interface was glitchy, text and images flickering and distorting as if struggling to exist in digital space. Forum topics discussed impossible things, books that rewrote reality, words that could alter the reader's DNA, pages that served as portals to other dimensions. Emma told herself it was an elaborate role-playing game, some alternate reality project for bored tech geeks. But as she explored further, she noticed strange changes in her environment. Her potted plant, once lush and green, now sported vivid blue leaves with intricate, swirling patterns. The view outside her window showed a sky tinged with an unnatural purple hue. When she looked in the mirror, her eyes seemed to shift color, cycling through shades she'd never seen before. Unnerved, but unable to resist her curiosity, Emma delved back into the forum. She found a thread titled, "The Glitch in the Code of Reality," with thousands of replies. The original post read, "We've found it. The bug in the universe's programming. Who's ready to exploit it?" What followed was a collaborative effort spanning years. with users sharing experiences, experiments, and code snippets that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Emma's programmer instincts took over. She began to see patterns in the chaos, a logic to the madness. Without fully understanding why, she started to contribute to the thread, sharing her observations about the changes around her. The response was immediate. Private messages flooded her inbox, users both congratulating her and warning her of the dangers ahead. One message stood out: "You've seen behind the curtain. There's no going back. Are you ready to help us rewrite reality?" Attached was a string of code unlike any programming language Emma had encountered. As her eyes scanned the symbols, she felt a shift in her perception, as if her mind was expanding to accommodate new dimensions of thought. When she looked up from her screen, her room had changed subtly. Objects seemed to flicker in and out of existence, their edges blurring into impossibilities. A book on her shelf now contained pages that led to other books, an infinite library contained in a single volume. Emma's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number read, "The next meeting is soon. Will you join us in debugging the universe?" As she considered her response, Emma noticed her hands flickering, becoming temporarily translucent. She realized she was becoming like the glitchy forum, existing between states of reality. With trembling fingers, she typed her reply, "I'm in. Where do we start?" The response came instantly. "We already have. Look around you." Emma's world dissolved into streams of code, her consciousness expanding beyond the confines of her physical form. She saw the underlying structure of reality, a vast network of interconnected systems, pulsing with energy and information. And within that cosmic programming, she saw the glitches, small inconsistencies that could be exploited, altered, rewritten. As Emma took her first steps into this new realm of existence, she understood the weight of the choice she'd made. She was no longer just a programmer probing the deep web. She had become a hacker of reality itself. In the days that followed, Emma's perception of the world continued to shift. She saw the hidden code behind everyday objects, the subtle glitches in the fabric of space-time. The forum became her lifeline, a community of fellow reality hackers sharing their discoveries and warnings. But with her newfound power came danger. Government agencies and shadowy organizations began to take notice of the changes rippling through reality. Emma found herself in a high-stakes game of cat and mouse, using her ability to manipulate the code of the universe to stay one step ahead of those who would seek to control or eliminate her. As she delved deeper into the mysteries of existence, Emma realized that the deep web forum was just the tip of the iceberg. The true nature of reality was far stranger and more malleable than she could have ever imagined. And somewhere, in the deepest, darkest corner of the web, the original architect of the universal code watched and waited, ready to confront those who dared to meddle with creation. Detective Michael Chen stared at his computer screen, frustration etched on his face. Another dead end in his investigation of a string of bizarre suicides. The victims had nothing in common: different ages, backgrounds, locations, except for one thing. They all died with enigmatic smiles on their faces. Months of conventional investigation had yielded nothing. Out of desperation, Michael turned to the deep web, searching for any connections he might have missed. That's when he stumbled upon the Whisper Network. At first glance, it seemed like a typical anonymous messaging board. But as Michael dug deeper, he uncovered layers of encryption and hidden forums. The users here spoke in code, discussing something they called the ultimate experience. Intrigued, Michael created an account, crafting a careful persona as a thrill-seeker looking for the next big high. It took weeks of cautious interaction before he was granted access to the inner circle. What he found chilled him to the bone. The Whisper Network was no ordinary drug ring or thrill-seeking club. Its members were obsessed with pushing the boundaries of human experience, constantly seeking new ways to stimulate their jaded senses. Their latest fascination? Death. Not just the concept, but the experience itself. Users shared accounts of near-death experiences, competing to see who could come closest to the brink without falling over. They spoke of a euphoria beyond anything achievable by earthly means, a bliss that made life pale in comparison. Michael watched in horror as members encouraged each other to go further, to dance closer to the edge. The forum was filled with detailed guides on how to induce near-death states, how to revive someone who had gone too far, and chilling discussions about the ethics of their pursuits. As he delved deeper into the network, Michael began to see connections to his suicide cases. Certain phrases, specific methods, it all pointed to involvement with this group. But the truly terrifying aspect was the hierarchy within the network. At the top were individuals known only as the returned, those who claimed to have fully died and come back, now possessing knowledge from beyond the veil. These returned were treated with an almost religious reverence. They spoke cryptically about what they had seen, teasing revelations that kept their followers hungry for more. And they promised that with the right guidance, anyone could experience the ultimate bliss of death and return to share their wisdom. Michael knew he had to shut this down, but how? The network was decentralized, its members scattered across the globe. And worse, as he spent more time undercover, he found himself drawn to their words, a part of him curious about the experiences they described. He shook off the thought, focusing on gathering evidence. But the deeper he went, the more tangled the web became. He uncovered connections to influential figures, politicians, celebrities, business tycoons, all seeking the ultimate thrill. Just as Michael thought he was close to unraveling the conspiracy, his cover was blown. A message appeared on his screen. "Curious, Detective Chen? Why not experience it for yourself?" Suddenly, his computer erupted with a cacophony of whispers, thousands of voices speaking at once. Michael ripped off his headphones, but the whispers continued, now seeming to come from inside his own head. He stumbled away from his desk, his vision blurring. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, promising revelations beyond his wildest dreams if he would just let go, just step over the threshold. Michael fought against the compulsion, but he could feel his resolve weakening. The world around him began to fade, replaced by a soft, welcoming darkness. As he felt himself slipping away, a small part of his mind clung to consciousness, to his duty as a detective. With his last ounce of strength, he fumbled for his phone, managing to send a desperate text to his partner. "Whisper network, deeper than we thought. Don't let them." He never finished the message. Detective Michael Chen was found in his apartment the next day, a peaceful smile on his face, the latest victim of the very case he had been trying to solve. But in the depths of the web, on a forum hidden from prying eyes, a new account appeared. Its username, Returned Detective. Its first post, "I've seen the other side, and now I understand everything." The Whisper Network claimed another soul, the line between investigator and perpetrator blurred forever in the dark whispers of the deep web.